And Into the Warm by Timaeus, read by Deathlights. Poems came and went over the course of the next half hour. Waitresses bustled in and out of the kitchen, arriving with trays covered with empty plates and cups, and departing with fresh pastas, savory foods, and steaming drinks, exactly what any pony needs to weather their winter storm. Sometimes they stopped and asked Bonbon how she was, or if there's anything they could get for her. Still nursing her cocoa and half a scone, she politely declined. Every time, though, she tried to return the smile that each waitress greeted her with. The cold and snow that froze her coat became distant memories the longer she lavished in the cafe's warmth. As Lyra promised, she was warm, toasty, and more than content to sit in the corner of the booth until she was asked to leave. Bonbon scooped the last bit of her scone into her mouth, allowing herself a satisfied hum with the taste of strawberry jam mixing so wonderfully with the buttery treat. Then, lifting her cup up to her lips, she drank the last mouthful of her cocoa. Though it had cooled some, it was no less sweet, and had yet to fill to stroke a warmth that had been kindled in her chest. She licked her lips, savoring the sweetness of the cocoa that lingered on her tongue, and set her empty cup down. Not a second passed before a knock on the booth drew a flicker from her ear. Her smile came easier when she looked up and found Lyra leaning against the booth's wooden frame. "On your break?" A smile danced over Lyra's muzzle. "Yep, finally. Is it okay if I join you for a bit?" "Please," Bonbon said, waving to the empty bench across from her. "I'd really like your company." "And I'd like to be the company." Wiggling her ears, Lyra slid into the booth, heaving a sigh the moment her flanks hit the bench. She swept off her visor and dropped it to the table with one hoof, while the other ran through her mane. Locks of green and white tumbled over her horn and bobbed over her eyes. Bonbon had to suppress a giggle at the sight. "Busy out there?" That drew a snort from Lyra, one that sharpened the unicorn's grin. "Yeah, like you don't know." Her eyes bounced from the empty cup on her way to meet Bonbon's gaze, and a low chuckle sounded from her throat. "Was it good?" Bonbon nodded, her hoof still loosely wound around the empty cup. Though she was warm and cozy, there was a certain comfort to holding a hot drink between one's hooves. It was a comfort that any stranger would crave in a new town filled with new ponies, and she was no exception. It was delicious. "Then I take it you wouldn't mind another?" Horn aglow, Lyra propped her head on her hoof as two saucers floated over to their booth from the kitchen, and settled with a soft click on the table. Steam wafted up from the cup in front of Bonbon, enticing her once more with a promise of warmth, chocolate, and sweetness. Already, her hooves wrapped around the new cup, drinking in its warmth that melted the marshmallows bobbing on top. A light hum rumbled in the back of her throat, prompting a light, giggly laugh from Lyra. "I thought you might need a refill." Lyra's voice, amused and musical, drew Bonbon's gaze from her cocoa. "Am I going to get to pay for this one?" Snickering, Lyra lifted up her own cup of cocoa in the light of her magic. "Who said refills aren't free?" She blew softly over the drink, sending wafts of steam rolling across the table. "And even if they're not, it's cocoa, so it still technically classifies as your first drink. Besides, 2 cocos isn't gonna empty my wallet or anything." Though she hid it behind her cup, Bonbon saw the edges of her companion's smile and heard it in her voice. It was sly, but sweet, mischievous, but caring. Not that it did anything to stop the scowl from forming on the candy maker's brow. "Hold on, I may be new in town, but I'm perfectly capable of paying for my drinks." "I guess you'll find out when you get the bill," Lyra said, grinning that sweet, eye-sparkling smile again. She held Bonbon's gaze as she took her first small sip of her drink, and licked away a bit of stray marshmallow fluff on her lip. "But if you really want to, you can always pay me by telling me a little bit about yourself." Bonbon dropped her scowl with a snort, but the cocoa was too delicious to maintain a grumpy facade. Besides, she had a growing feeling that her company was too endearing for anything more than a rolling of the eyes. Or, if things persisted, a gentle but reprimanding bop on the head. I can do math, you know. If you don't include everything on the bill, then I'll just tip you whatever it was worth. Ew, feisty. Grin-turning cat-like, Lyra lowered her cup down to its saucer and stapled her hooves. Her eyes twinkled and danced with golden, naked delights. Then maybe I'll just make everything on the house. Bonbon narrowed her eyes and spread her hooves across the table. Then I'll just have to, I guess. You can certainly try. Letting her gaze, Lyra rested her chin on her stapled hooves. We're sitting at the staff table. We don't accept tips from the staff table. What? Never have, never will, she said in a sing-song voice. And if everything's in the house, then you're technically not a paying customer. How can I accept tips from a non-paying customer? That just doesn't seem right. Bonbon stared at Lyra, her eyes piercing and fierce, while the unicorn regarded her with amusement and an aura of smug victory. Another snore turned into a groan as she looked away and sunk back into her bench. Fine, you win. If I tell you about myself, will you let me pay? We'll see, Lyra said, sitting back and sipping deeply from her cocoa. It depends on what you tell me. How about we start with something simple, like what brought you to Ponyville? In an instant, Bonbon's shoulders stiffened and her ears went rigid. Her tail lashed across the bench, whipping back and forth while her voice caught somewhere in her throat. Feigning a cough, she found a corner of her lip between her teeth, and her gaze dropped down to Lyra's hooves. Of all the questions she could have asked, why did it have to be that one? Oh, Bonbon said, clearing her throat. Her hoof squeezed her cup, squeezing what comfort she could from its warmth, and she trailed her gaze along the path of her suitcase and saddlebags. That's sort of a long story. Wood squeaked and groaned as Lyra leaned over the table. The sound brought Bonbon's gaze back around. Curiosity danced behind the waitress's eyes in flickering motes of gold. But there was also concern that weighed upon her brow. Did something happen? Bonbon's ears drooped, pinning back in her mane, in time with her gaze dropping to her cocoa. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Things kind of... She cleared her throat, offering a strained, wobbly smile. Fell apart at work and stuff. Oh. Lance furrowed Lyra's brow, wrinkling it into a frown, equal parts confused and concerned. I'm sorry to hear that, Bonbon. Do you want to talk about it? With a shake of her head and a rueful little smile, Bonbon said, No, not really. I came here looking for a new start, where I can leave all that stuff behind. Ponyville sounded nice, quiet, and friendly. Before it fell on Lyra and the frown that wrinkled her snout. The last one certainly seems to be true. The scowl from Lyra's face replaced with a lighter and easier smile. Yeah, Ponyville's pretty great, and, I'm sorry. She winced, flickering the smile into a tight-lined grimace. I didn't mean to pry into serious stuff like that. Lyra, Bonbon said, ducking her head to catch the unicorn's falling gaze. You brought me out of the cold, gave me free cocoa, and have been wonderful to me. When she caught Lyra's eyes, she smiled. It felt warm, genuine, and easy to do. You have nothing to apologize for. Well, okay. Something shaky and caught between a laugh and a sigh trembled past Lyra's lips. So, I couldn't help but notice when you came in, you had a bunch of candies for the cutie mark. Do you make candy? After a second, she added, or is that another minefield I should avoid? Though Bonbon's brow arched, she shook her head and allowed herself a giggle. No, it's fine. I guess I should be flattered that my flanks somehow managed to stand out in a cafe filled with ponies. Lyra coughed and spluttered the sip she took from her cocoa. A faint, reddish hue crept across her muzzle as she shook her head and wiped the mess from her lips. That's not what I meant, it's just, I'd never seen you before, so I was curious. I didn't mean to stare or anything. A dam broke, and a torrent of giggling laughter bursted forward from Bonbon's mouth. Though she tried to hide it behind her hoof, there was no stopping it as the blush grew over Lyra's face, Coloring her cheeks a rosy red and shone, even as the unicorn muttered and buried her head in her hooves. "It's okay, Lyra," Bonbon said in between snorts of laughter. "I was only teasing, unless you were staring." Lifting her head, Lyra pursed her lips and snorted, her cheeks no less flushed, and said, "Even if I was raised right. I totally bet the Meridene before, well, you know." Mischief, along with snow, friendship, and warmth seemed to be abundant and contagious in Ponyville. The Bonbon arched her brow and took a slow sip of her cocoa. "Kind of like what you're doing now?" Bonbon felt the long strands of Lyra's tail tickling her thigh as it lashed back and forth underneath the table. The unicorn squirmed in her seat, puffing out her cheeks in clear foolish defiance. "Oh, shut up! Do you like candy? Yes or no?" "Yes," Bonbon said, smiling around the rim of her cup as she took another sip. "Or at least I like to. I always wanted to have my own candy store. Nothing big or fancy, just something I can run on my own." Lyra's ears perked as the blush began to dwindle from her cheeks. "Oh yeah? I used to dream about it when I was a little filly." A different kind of warmth crept up Bonbon's neck and kissed her cheeks. No doubt staining her cream-colored coat a lollipop red. "It's kind of silly, I know, but I think I have enough bits saved up to make it happen." She shook her head and chuckled, swirling the contents of her cup. "But I bet Ponyville already has its own candy store, so I don't know if that'll ever actually happen." "Are you kidding me? That's not silly at all!" A toothy grin split Lyra's muzzle. "And we totally don't have any candy stores here. I mean, we have Sugar Cube Corner, but that's the bakery. You'd fit right in." Bonbon couldn't help but smile at the enthusiasm of the other mayor's voice. She hummed, dwelling over and savoring the new kind of warmth that reached her cheeks. Entirely unexpected, but not entirely unwelcome. What was a new life without new feelings and new warmths? "You think so?" "I know so. I know we've only just met, but you seem really cool. And maybe I was looking earlier, just a bit." The glow of Lyra's magic enveloped her cup, lifting it to her lips as she winked. "This town could use a little more eye candy." That brought a snort-driven giggle from Bonbon. "Oh, stop. I'm being fully serious. It sounds like a great dream, Bonbon. You want to hear what a real silly dream sounds like?" A softer, more fragile giggle fell from Lyra's lips. She lowered her cup to her hooves, cupping it the same way Bonbon had. "When I was a little tyke, I used to dream about being in the Equestrian Symphonic Orchestra. You know, playing in large venues all around Equestria, working my way up to first chair, all that good stuff." Ears perked, Bonbon nodded and sipped from her cocoa. The musical tone of Lyra's voice and the lilting bell-like quality of her laugh made sense now. But it did little to make it any less fascinating to listen to. "So, you're a musician then?" "Yep, buy me dinner next time, and maybe I'll let you look at my flank to see for yourself." "Oh, hush." Plucking a balled-up napkin from her side of the table, Bonbon tossed it at Lyra and grinned as the harmlessly bounced off her horn. "What do you play?" "A lyre," Lyra said, scrunching up her muzzle and going cross-eyed in a vain effort to look up at her horn. "And I sing too, not like Sapphire Shores or anything. I'm nowhere near that good, but I think I'm okay." "Do you think you can show me sometime?" Bonbon watched Lyra's ears perk and swivel towards her, and her eyes widened just a hair. "Not right now, but I think if I'm going to be moving here, I'd really like to hear it. I bet you sing wonderfully." "Oh, yeah, sure." A smile eked over Lyra's face. One of her hooves poked and prodded at the few marshmallows bobbing in the surface of her cocoa, while the other ran through her mane. Her smile grew when she met Bonbon's gaze. "Yes, definitely, I'd love to." Something fluttered in Bonbon's chest when she returned the smile. "Something to look forward to when the weather clears up. But, can I ask you a question?" "Sure," Lyra said, plucking one of the remaining marshmallows from her cocoa with a swipe of her tongue. "It's only fair." "If you're a musician, then what are you doing waiting tables in a cafe?" Lyra's ears perked to the question before drooping down against her mane. She chewed the marshmallows and swallowed, shifting in her seat all the while. Oh, well, it's not easy for a musician to get work sometimes. Turns out there's a lot of musically talented ponies in Canterlots, and a lot of them have those fancy pedigrees and inheritance and family reputations and stuff. She shrugged, the gesture helpless, but her face bore an expression of tired acceptance that reflected in the shrug of her smile and the shrinking of her eyes. A country girl like me is likely to be overlooked when there's a lineup of prodigies practicing since they were like 4. Bonbon felt her ears folding back. I guess it's my turn to hit a minefield, wasn't it? If you stick around to the end of my shift, maybe we can call it even. A flicker of a smile pulled out the corner of Lyra's mouth. I'll load you up with all the free cocoa you want. I have a feeling you'd do that anyways. Anything to impress the fillies, right? The weight hanging over Lyra's expression broke in the wake of another musical, lilting laugh. I'd try serenading you, but I'm pretty sure my manager would pin my tail to the wall for disturbing the other customers. Then I'll settle for another cocoa. Bonbon's smile came easy in response to Lyra's, and she found the glittering, twinkling mischief in the latter's eyes gone. In its place was a peeking fondness, one that made her eyes glow warm, tender and soft, a molten shade of red. So, is that why you moved back to Ponyville? Lyra's smile turned equally fond as she found her eyes wander towards the kitchen and the cafe proper. Yeah, even though I went to school in Canterlot, Ponyville's my home. I think I could be happy here, even if I never end up as some big-time symphonic player. Before Bonbon could reply, an oven timer dinged in the kitchen, and Lyra was on her hooves in a second. Oh, while you're here, you have to try the brownies. They're so good, especially when they come fresh out of the oven. Hang on, I'll get us one. With a flick and swish of her tail, Lyra returned to the kitchen. She only made it a step, though, before Bonbon leaned out of the booth and rested a hoof on her shoulder. The farmer's ears flicked as she looked over her shoulder with the slightest sheen of uncertainty in her eyes. Not hungry? A brownie sounds wonderful, Bonbon said, retracting her hoof with a gentle, if firm smile. But I'm paying for it, and I am a little full from the muffin and scone. She folded her hooves over the table, and returned one of Lyra's many playful ear wiggles as she settled back in her seat. So you just have to help me eat it. Lyra only hesitated for a second before her bright smile spread over her muzzle, lighting her up her eyes a dazzling, sparkling gold. I think I can live with that. Good. Clasping her hooves around her cocoa, Bonbon lifted the cup up to her lips, letting her senses become awash in warmth, sweetness, and chocolate. I'll be waiting right here. And I'll be back in a flash. Lyra's hooves clip-clopped in a cadence over the floor as she hurried into the kitchen. As the tip of her tail disappeared around the corner, Bonbon sipped slowly from her cup. The warmth of the cocoa trickled down her throat, mixing and mingling with an entirely different warmth that danced and fluttered in her chest. It wasn't exactly how she thought she started a new life in Ponyville. A week ago, such feelings would cause complication after complication, but such complications were a part of her old life. The life of Bonbon, Candymaker, and soon-to-be Ponyvillian, and there is no shame letting them ripple and tingle from head to hoof. As she sipped again from her cup, she found herself smiling and counted the seconds until Lyra's return. Perhaps the life of Bonbon would be better than she expected. By the time Bonbon ventured back out into the streets of Ponyville, night had long since fallen. The sky now clear from the dense, gray and snow-laden clouds that blanketed it hours ago, came to life with more stars than any pony could hope to count. They twinkled and shone, dancing high above, while the mare and the moon watched over it all. Its shadows sprawled upon the moon's surface as the ponies slept and sought warmth in the comfort of their homes. The streets were no less covered in snow when Bonbon had stumbled into the cafe. But now that the wind had stilled and the world had gone quiet, it created a breathtaking sight. How moonlight shone down on the streets, catching the snow and reflecting the dazzling, sparkling dance of the stars above. Nary a hoofprint marred the snow's surface, casting the town a moment of winter tranquility and peace she'd only ever seen in paintings kept in the Royal Canterlot Museum. To Tonight, she found herself lucky to walk through such a vista, and luckier not to walk through it alone. The hum of Lyra's magic sounded as a constant buzz on the edge of her hearing, and its golden glow guided their way through the streets. Bonbon's suitcase, enveloped in the same glow, bobbed in the air beside them. Then her saddlebags thumped against her sides with each crunch of her hoof in the snow. Though she felt the cold nip at her nose and cling to her hooves, she couldn't help but relish the warmth that filled her belly and lingered in her chest. It may have not risen to a roaring, knee-wobbling flame, but it held a steady smolder that was stoked with each brush of their shoulders. Any sound might have broken the moment, but a soft, musical giggle from Lyra did nothing of the sort. Now that she heard it enough, Bonbon could at last place what it reminded her of. A set of hooves gently plucking at a harp string. Cold? With an easy smile, or one that hasn't left for some time now, Bonbon shook her head. Not at all. It must have been that last brownie. Lyra's giggle turned into a sharper snicker. Under her toque, Bonbon knew she must have been wiggling her ears as she liked to do. Told you they were good. And you were too right. Wrapping a hoof around her stomach, Bonbon squeezed out a small, half-hearted groan. I'm so full. Good. The shoulders brushed together as Lyra leaned in a step closer. That means you're gonna sleep like a log tonight, so tomorrow you can start your hunt for the perfect place to open your candy shop. Bonbon returned the gesture, bumping their shoulders together with a bubbly little laugh. I'm so ready to collapse into a nice, warm bed right now. I haven't been this exhausted since forever. Casting a glance at the night sky, she let loose another groan, belated by the smile dancing across her muzzle. I can't believe I was at the cafe until closing, and I can't believe your manager was okay with that. I might have promised a couple overtime shifts later this week, Lyra said with a dismissive wave of her hoof. But it was worth it, and I'd do it again, especially for a mayor like you, Bonbon. Overtime shifts? Ears perked, the corners of Bonbon's lips twisted into a frown. She eyed a new friend, narrowing her gaze and ignoring the flutter of warmth in her chest at that moment. You didn't say anything about that when I paid the bill. Yeah, I guess your tip wasn't that great, given the exceptional service. Lyra's eyes danced and twinkled with motes of gold, much like the snow below them and the sky above. Guess you just have to find some way to make it up to me. Especially since I'm walking you to the hotel and carrying your suitcase free of charge. Bonbon hummed, flicking speckles of snow with her swishing tail. It almost sounds like you're trying to come up with excuses for us to spend time together again. The corner of Lyra's mouth lifted into a cat-like smirk. Maybe I'm just trying to keep things fair. You still haven't had a chance to look at my flank, remember? Bonbon snorted. What's to stop me from taking a look right now? Like the cat who caught the canary, Lyra's grin turned vulpine. Good question. Nothing, I guess. The tip of Lyra's tail swept to the side, tickling over Bonbon's haunches. Together with the molten glow of her eyes, there was no ignoring the fluttering of the earth pony's chest, or the prickling heat that warmed her cheeks. At least in the cold, her blush would be visible. Well, perhaps I also know how to treat a mare. Lyra cocked her head to the side. Oh yeah? Very much so. Bonbon said, lifting her nose to the air and shading her companion alongside grin. The trepidation and unease she felt when she first stepped off the train were long gone, buried and forgotten in some snowdrift somewhere between the train station and the cafe. And I also know how to settle tips and show certain mares my gratitude, especially when they're going out of their way. It's hardly out of my way, in fact, it's on my way, remember? Lyra jerked her head further down the street, grinning that impish, ice-sparkling smile of hers. I live right by the hotel. Right, so where do you live then exactly? Don't judge me for it, but I'm actually living at home with my mom and dad. A subtle, awkward chuckle fell from Lyra's lips, and she reached back to scratch at the base of her neck. They're on Saddle Street, and I am looking for a place of my own. I just need to save a few bits first. With your mom and dad, huh? Bonbon chuckled, eager to return that grin she had seen so many times today. Doesn't that make you little mamas... wait. Brow furrowing and gaze narrowing, she came to a stop. Saddle Street? Ears flicking, Lyra paused only a few steps ahead to turn around. Yeah. I know that street. A snort turned to a growl as Bonbon stomped her hoof in the snow, spraying flicks all around her and wedging her hoof into the cold. I saw it a few blocks away from the train station. That's on the other side of town. Oh. The confidence, swagger, and allure evaporated from Lyra's smile, leaving a wobbly, meek mess in its place. She pawed the ground, drawing a line in the snow while her shoulders shook with an effort of forcing a chuckle. Oops, I guess it is. Silly me. Lyra! Stomping her way through the snow, Bonbon closed the few steps that separated them. With Lyra's meek smile and ducked head, she towered over the unicorn and let her frown furrow her brow. It's going to take you forever to get home, and it's freezing out. Maybe. Lyra shrugged, licking her lips and swallowing, raising her head. Bonbon didn't falter as they stood almost snout to snout, no matter how enticing her companion's eyes were with the moonlight caught with them. But do you know what? I don't care. I do it again, and trust me. Her smile returned, smaller and more demure. I'm not cold, not at all, not after tonight. Bonbon sighed and shook her head, gently brushing her shoulder against Lyra's as she trudged past her. That way, there's no chance she saw her smile. Are you always this impossible? The crunch of Lyra's hooves threw the snow forward, and a second later she felt the shoulder bump return. Maybe, I guess you'll have to find out. A chuckle rolled past Bonbon's lips. Gaze downcast, she felt her smile continue to warm her face at the sight of Lyra's hooves stepping in line with hers. I can think of worse fates. They rolled around a street corner, passing a bench piled high with snow that swept over its back and arms. For a time, they fell into a comfortable silence, punctuated only by their breaths curling up into the air in puffs of white fog. The soft crunch of their hooves and the rhythmic thump of Bonbon's saddlebags against her sides. Though she may have gotten lost in the storm, Ponyville wasn't that big of a town. Even if they dawdled and went through the most scenic route possible, their time together would soon come to an end, at least for tonight. And despite all of the warmth, the smile lingered over her muzzle, and the shoulders pressing together every few steps. A question buzzed at the back of Bonbon's mind. The longer the silence lasted, the louder it became, until she found her pace slowing, the corner of her lip between her teeth, and her eyes on her hooves. Something soft and silky flicked over her haunches, making her blink. The sound of her hooves stopped, and then she lifted her head. She found Lyra in front of her head angled to the side, and her muzzle lined with faint concern. Everything okay? Lyra, Bonbon discovered, was easy to smile at. Wrapping her scarf one more loop around her neck, she stepped forward, nudging her companion along with her. I'm fine, just thinking. Okay, Lyra said, her frown lingering as she followed. What about? The question buzzed, and Bonbon knew she had to ask it before she could say goodbye. Even if she would see Lyra tomorrow, she knew she had to ask. Licking her lips, she rolled her shoulders in a shrug. About you. Lyra's steps faltered for only a second, then scattered through the snow. When she lowered her head to meet Bonbon's gaze, her ears were perked and her frown was gone, washed away by the eagerness that widened her eyes in a bright, golden glow. Really? Bonbon giggled. How could she not? I have a question for you, actually. Anything. Lifting her head, Bonbon exhaled. I just wanted to ask why. Clearing her throat, she kept her stride as the eagerness in Lyra's face gave way to confusion. The unicorn corked her brow, wrinkling her muzzle, but waited for more. Why did you do all this for me? To her surprise, Lyra snickered. She shook her head and cocked her lips into an increasingly familiar, worried little smirk that made her eyes sparkle and dance with light. Seriously? Oh, come on, Bonbon said, fighting down a smile of her own as she bumped her hips against her companion. You barely know more than my name. And you knew even less when you stuck your neck out for me and gave me the table. Not true, I know a lot more about you than that, Bonbon. Lyra's smirk softened into something warmer. Something that made the amused, flickering dancing behind her eyes lower into a smoldering fondness. Yeah, it's only been a few hours, but I already know your dream of running your own candy shop. I know you're funny, nice, and you're really fun to talk to. You're really pretty and stubborn as a mule if you walk through that storm for an hour. Fighting through the blush that licked her cheeks, Bonbon brushed a loose strand of her mane behind her ear. Most smart mares would have stopped at pretty. Really pretty, Lyra said, though they were alone in the empty street. She dropped her voice to a murmur meant only for Bonbon to hear. And who says stubborn is bad? Stubborn's kinda hot. He prickled up along Bonbon's muzzle, burning the tips of her ears, and no doubt darkening her coat to a bright, rosy hue. No pony just that nice to some pony they'd never met before, Lyra. Then you really are new to Ponyville. They were walking side by side now, close enough where their shoulders were brushing together with almost every step now. When Lyra spoke, little puffs of air tickled Bonbon's coats, and the candy-making mare shivered as a long exhale washed over her coat. Do you really want to know? It's a bit of a long story, and we're almost to the hotel. I can walk very slowly when the mood strikes me. Bonbon lashed out her tail, flicking it over Lyra's haunches, and slowing her pace to a slow shuffle through the snow. And you best get talking then. Another, smaller sigh pushed past Lyra's lips. She slowed down, falling in love with Bonbon in the slow crawl through the sleepy town. Alright, that's fair. I told you I grew up in Ponyville, but my schooling was in Canterlot, right? Bonbon nodded and took a half step closer to Lyra, moving towards the warmth to stave off the winter chill that grew the slower they moved. Yeah, you went to Celestia's school for gifted unicorns. My parents wanted me to have a really good education, Lyra said, matching Bonbon's half steps so that the hairs of their coats mixed and mingled as they walked. They sent me to live with my grandparents in Canterlot while I went to school. They were great, don't get me wrong, but it was like living in a museum. A lot of don't touch this, don't touch that, don't check mud on the carpets. Bonbon giggled softly. You were a mud tracker as a fool, were you? You should have seen me on the playground. Lyra returned the laugh, creasing her lips into a thin, devilish little smirk. But it wasn't all bad, you know? They were totally dedicated to their art and music, which is pretty cool. I learned a lot from them, but I missed home. Canterlot's beautiful, but it's not Ponyville. I miss my friends, I miss the smell of apples on the wind. I miss the schoolhouse bell playing in the whitetail wood. A snore sounded from her nostrils and she shook her head. When she found Bonbon's gaze, it was with a small, demure thing of a smile. I guess you can tell I'm a Ponyville gal at heart. Bonbon returned the smile, leaning in to mesh their coats together for the fleeting second. I think it's endearing, and I think I know the feeling. Lyra cleared her throat, reaching up to scratch the nape of her neck. Though her coat wasn't the same treacherous cream color as Bonbon's, the fur around her cheeks darkened a shade or two. Yeah, well, I was pretty lonely when I was set up there. I didn't know a lot of ponies my age, and the fools I did know were like child prodigies. Dedicated and talented, and with big names like Harmony, he didn't have time to make friends with a small-town mare from nowhere. Ears drooping, Bonbon lifted her gaze to Mount Canterhorn. Even as far away as Ponyville, the moonlight still shone and reflected off the golden parapets of Canterlot Castle. I'm sorry. To me, it sounds like they missed out on meeting a very special pony. A soft chuckle shook Lyra's shoulders. Thanks, but it didn't last too long. I was pretty scared on my first day of school, she said, and Bonbon caught the tip of her mane, shaking back and forth out of the corner of her eye. Every pony else had friends already, so I was sort of on my own, at least up until lunch. Cocking her head to the side, Bonbon returned her attention to the mare at her side. What happened at lunch? I was sitting alone in the corner of the cafeteria. I was feeling lost and alone, you know? But then this little filly I recognized from class walked up to me and asked if I wanted to eat lunch with her and her friends. Warmth blood in the Lyra's smile, matching an old, but yet unyielding fondness that touched her eyes. I barely said yes before she grabbed me and dragged me over to this table of ponies. A couple of them were a little quiet, but every pony else was super excited to meet me. We shared desserts, and they made me feel like I belonged. It was a really good feeling. Mama felt the warmth she felt ballooning in her chest, swell and lift her lips into a smile. Walking as they were at a slow pace, it was a trivial effort to let her hoof stray over to the side, brushing over Lyra's foreleg, and briefly clasp around the hoof below. It was cold and skin prickling to the touch, sending ripples of goose flesh up her own foreleg, but her smile didn't falter in the slightest. I think I know what it's like, all of it. Adding to the swelling warmth in her chest, Lyra loosely wrapped her hoof around Bonbons, sending a different kind of shiver up and along the latter's shoulder. That's the story of how I met my best friends. They still live up in Canterlot, and I visit them whenever I can. And they come down here to Ponyville all the time. Keep hanging around me, and you'll probably meet them before long. Slowly, reluctantly, Bonbon withdrew her hoof. I can't wait. They'll love you. Lyra said, slipping on an easy, lopsided smile before shaking her head. Anyways, at the end of the first day, I went up to ask the filly the same thing you asked me. Do you know what she said? A light, playful snort escaped Bonbon's snout as she flicked her tail over Lyra's haunches. If you did, maybe I wouldn't have asked you in the first place. Lyra snickered in her turn, bumping her hip into Bonbons. She said it looked lonely and sad all alone in the cafeteria. It was all too easy for the unicorn to scooch one step closer, bringing their shoulders flush together. She said I looked like I needed a friend and a reason to smile, because every pony's happier and prettier when they're smiling. They turned a corner, and though Bonbon wished that the streets kept winding and weaving, she knew their time together was coming to an end. The pace slowed to a gradual stop, and though she saw the hotel sign across the road, she found her attention linger on the mare to her side. The feel of their coats meshing and rubbing together, and the warmth that flowed between them. So, when I saw you shivering in the doorway, Lyra continued, her voice an affectionate murmur against the cold and biting breeze. Thought of that day. Her foreleg barely had to move to brush over Bonbons. The touch sent the hairs along the earth pony's foreleg standing on end. You looked like you needed a reason to smile. I just didn't know how much I liked seeing you smile until after I saw it. Smiling was certainly an easy thing to do right then, no matter how wobbling or demure it may have been. Warmth fluttered in Bonbon's chest, licking up along her neck, and tingling her cheeks with heat. Lyra, she said, squeezing her hoof around the unicorns. You're already holding hoofs with me and making me blush. I don't think you need to worry about flattering me anymore. Lyra giggled, its musical, lilting tone not lost to the wind. You're cute when you're flustered, and even prettier when you smile. And wouldn't I want to flatter you? Bonbon's tail swished from side to side, spraying motes of snow that sparkled in the moonlight. Well, maybe you can give it a rest for tonight and save for tomorrow. Or the weekend, or whenever you have time. She cleared her throat and swallowed, finding her gaze drawn down to their intertwined hooves. I think I'd very much like to do this again. Only a second passed before a touch on her cheek made her ears stand on end. For a lingering, fleeting moment, she felt Lyra's breath on her ear, and heard the hum of her throat as she nuzzled her way along Bonbon's jaw. Me too, I have Friday off. Bonbon licked her lips, delighting in a fresh new warmth that spread across her muzzle. Friday it is then. When Lyra pulled back, it was with a rosy line drawn across her muzzle, matching Bonbon. Her eyes, however, glittered with a brilliant gold, illuminated by the smile that stretched from ear to ear. Okay, I'll meet you then. We can go out for lunch and I can show you around town. The tip of her toe flicked back and forth. Maybe we can scope out some places for you to set up your shop. Bonbon giggled into her scarf, suppressing a shiver as a gust of wind blew down the streets. That sounds perfect. Now, are you going to be warm enough to get home? It's freezing. Oh, trust me, I'll be fine. Lyra's hoof squeezed Bonbons, and her smile never wavered as the wind blew. I'm not feeling cold at all. Despite herself, Bonbon felt her lips pull down into a frown. Are you sure? Lyra nodded once more. Definitely, but maybe, she said, taking the last step that kept them apart. I could do something just in case. Now, barely an inch apart, Bonbon's world became engulfed by Lyra's eyes. They glowed with a smoldering warmth, the one that kept the winter's chill at bay, and drew the earth pony mare like a moth to a flame. Hot little puffs of air washed over her snout, and a fluttering in her chest that made her knees begin to wobble. Though she knew the answer, she couldn't help but ask, "Is this something I could help with?" Lyra's smile wasn't sly, impatient, or vulpine. Instead, it was something just as warm as her eyes, and every bit as enticing. Without another word, she angled her head to the side, leaning in those last precious few inches until her lips grazed over Bonbon's cheek. Once more, her breath tickled Bonbon's ear, and a fresh, rolling wave of warmth blossomed, centered on where Lyra's lips had met her cheek. The fluttering grew, and she found her breath caught somewhere in her throat. When Lyra pulled away, it was the same smile that enticed Bonbon so. "There," she said, speaking in a hushed, delicate murmur. "That'll definitely keep me warm until I get home. And you should get inside before you freeze." There was a delightful moment then, in which Bonbon didn't think. Listening to the warmth that filled her chest and made her heart flutter, she squeezed her hoof, holding Lyra still as the unicorn made it slip away. She gazed into golden eyes, feeling her lips curl into a smile at the lines that furrowed the other mare's brow. "I'll be plenty warm in a second," Bonbon said, pulling Lyra's hoof closer and closer until they stood snout to snout. She lifted her gaze, tittering softly at the hitch in the unicorn's throat. "It's you I'm more worried about. I think I better make sure." Tilting her head to the side, Bonbon caught Lyra's lips in a soft, gentle kiss. The other mare went rigid at the lingering contact, but before long, relaxed. The kiss itself wasn't anything full of passion and fervor. No, much like the warmth that spread from Bonbon's core, it was soft, lingering. It made her every fiber flutter and quiver. Lightning didn't arc through her veins or draw moans from her lips. In its place was a gentle peace and tranquility, one that let the kiss linger in the biting winter wind. Bonbon lifted her hoof, gently cupping and stroking Lyra's cheek as they at last separated. She gazed at the unicorn through lidded eyes, nibbling ever so gently on her bottom lip before leaning up to whisper in her ear, "Get home safely." She felt Lyra nod against her neck, and a shuddering breath wash over her fur. The feeling brought Bonbon in closer until their coats meshed and mingled again. "Good, then I'll see you on Friday." Lyra nodded again, and Bonbon felt as much as heard her reply, "I wouldn't dream of missing it." Bonbon giggled in Lyra's ear, lingering long enough to plant one last, chaste peck of a kiss onto the base of the unicorn's ear before slipping away. "Good night, Lyra." Now that they were separated, Bonbon could see in delight in exactly how brilliant Lyra's face burned when she blushed. The golden glow of her eyes still shone in the moonlight, no less warming or knee-wobbling as before, and her smile spoke of unsaid affection. "Good night, Bonbon." They stood there, unmoving for many seconds longer, before, with one last smile, Bonbon pulled away and turned to the hotel. Her hooves moved slowly, all the better to hear the crunching of Lyra's hooves departing into the night. A wave of warmth washed over Bonbon as she pushed the hotel door open. Not that she noticed it very much. A different kind of warmth filled her chest, burning away every bit of cold and numbness from her nose to the tips of her hooves. She barely heard the bell chiming overhead as she swung the door shut. Instead of focusing on contemplating the memory of the sensation of Lyra's lips on her cheek, Lyra's lips against hers, Lyra's breath in her ear, and Lyra's coat pressed against her own, Bonbon chuckled as she trotted up to the front desk and rang the little silver bell. She might have a warm bed tonight, but she had long since came in from the cold. Who knew the life of Bonbon, candy maker, and soon-to-be Ponyvillian would be one of romance?